Imagine you are a sailor in the dead of winter, navigating the brutal, freezing waters of the North Atlantic. It is the night of December 15th, 1900. Your ship is relying on one thing to keep you from smashing into the jagged rocks of the Scottish coast: the brilliant, blinding beam of the Flannan Isles Lighthouse. But as you look out into the pitch-black darkness, there is nothing. No light, no signal. Just the roar of the ocean. When a relief crew finally arrived at the isolated lighthouse a few days later, they expected to find a broken lamp, or perhaps a crew that had fallen ill. Instead, they found something that has baffled historians and investigators for over a century. The heavy iron doors to the lighthouse were locked tight from the inside. Half-eaten meals sat perfectly frozen in time on the kitchen table. A chair was toppled over, as if someone had stood up in a blind panic. The enormous grandfather clock on the wall had completely stopped ticking. And the three experienced lighthouse keepers? They were entirely gone. No bodies were ever found. No distress signal was ever sent. They had simply evaporated into the frozen air.
To understand how impossible this is, you have to understand the Flannan Isles. They are a small, jagged cluster of rocks off the coast of Scotland, completely uninhabited by humans. They are so harsh, so unforgiving, that sailors call them the Seven Hunters. In 1899, the government built a massive, state-of-the-art lighthouse on the highest rock, Eilean Mor. It was a fortress. It was designed to withstand the absolute worst the ocean could throw at it. To run this fortress, they assigned 3 men: Thomas Marshall, James Ducat, and Donald McArthur. These were not amateurs. These were hardened, veteran lighthouse keepers who had survived decades at sea. They knew the rules. The most important rule of all: never, under any circumstances, leave the lighthouse totally unmanned. But less than a year after the lighthouse opened, that rule was broken. When the relief ship, the Hesperus, arrived on December 26th, the captain immediately knew something was wrong. There was no flag flying on the flagpole. None of the heavy provision boxes had been brought down to the dock. The relief keeper, a man named Joseph Mor, climbed the steep, icy stairs to the lighthouse alone. He shouted the names of his friends.
Mor pushed open the heavy main door. The silence inside was suffocating. He walked into the kitchen and found the terrifying scene: the overturned chair, the untouched food, the stopped clock. But it was when Mor checked the cloakroom that a cold dread washed over him. 2 sets of heavy outdoor oilskins and boots were missing, but one set, Donald McArthur's, was still hanging on its peg. This meant that 2 men had gone out into the freezing storm, and one man had rushed out after them in just his indoor clothes, leaving the front door unlocked behind him. Desperate for answers, Mor opened the official lighthouse logbook. What he read only made the mystery darker. The final entries were written by Thomas Marshall.
December 12th. Severe winds, the likes of which I have never seen before in 20 years. James Ducat has been quiet. Donald McArthur has been crying. This was impossible. Donald McArthur was a legendary, tough-as-nails sailor, known for getting into fistfights. Why was he crying? December 13th. Storm continued through the night. The men are praying. Why were these hardened sailors praying for their lives inside an indestructible stone fortress? And then, the final chilling entry, written on the afternoon of December 15th. Storm ended. Sea calm. God is over all. Here is the most terrifying detail of all. On December 12th, 13th, and 15th, weather stations on the nearby mainland recorded the weather around the Flannan Isles. There was no storm. The skies were perfectly clear, and the sea was entirely calm.
So what exactly killed them? Did one of the men lose his mind in the isolation, murder the other two, and throw himself into the sea? Did a massive rogue wave suddenly strike the island, washing them away in an instant? If so, why did one man leave his heavy coat behind? And why did the logbook detail days of phantom storms? The official investigation concluded that the men were swept away by a freak wave while trying to secure equipment near the cliff edge. The government stamped the file closed. But those who know the sea, and those who knew the three men, never bought that story. The timeline doesn't make sense. The stopped clock doesn't make sense. The tears of a hardened sailor don't make sense.
Today, the Flannan Isles Lighthouse operates automatically. There are no keepers on the island. The iron doors remain locked. The rocks remain silent. And whatever truly happened to Thomas, James, and Donald on that dark December night remains entirely swallowed by the sea. If you want to uncover more unsolved mysteries and dark history, hit that subscribe button. Until next time, stay curious.